Hello everybody, we're here at RemoteCon with yet another very interesting product demo on remote work tools. Here with us now we have Shield Geo, a product for international employment made simple. Shield Geo is an employer of record solution, enabling companies to employ and payroll staff in over 90 countries. As a global employment organization, GEO, Shield Geo acts as the employer of record by providing outsourced employment and payroll services to companies that have staff in a country where they are unable to employ them directly. Establishing a global entity can be time-consuming, confusing, and can drain resources. Therefore, Shield Geo makes international employment much more simple. They will handle all the local requirements for payroll, tax, and compliance, and they will leave you with what you do best, that is manage your remote employees. They have a team of subject matter experts in partner countries all across the globe and make even the trickiest employment cases very simple. It will be like having an HR team in every country that you have people in. For our demo here today, we have Giovanni Madsen, Head of Customer Success at Shield Geo. Hello, Giovanni. Nice to have you here.
Hi, thank you.
So the need is quite obvious here, like employing people in different countries. But why is that a service that companies cannot actually provide for themselves? What's the added value that you're bringing in this?
Well, essentially what people always forget is, and it happens really quite often for us, is, we'll have a client come over, they're from the US, and they're like, we think we can employ them directly in Germany or France. Very, very complicated labor law. Doesn't work that simply. You need an entity to be able to do that. So we step in, we take that burden away, and we employ your staff for you. Okay, so that's probably one of the key elements here when looking at our service.
Can you walk us a bit through the full list of services and how that works?
Sure. So I've got actually some material I'd like to kind of share with you. Go through a few points. I've got a couple of topics to understand maybe how the engagement model works, what our function is, an overview of maybe some of the clients that we have, and then we can kind of recap towards the end.
Sure. That sounds great.
Okay. Fantastic. I'm just going to quickly share my screen now. So starting off, and thank you, Alexandra, you did kind of highlight exactly where and what we do, but just to give you some background, essentially I head up the customer success at Shield Geo. My name is Giovanni, and the opportunity that we've been very gladly offered today is to tell you a bit more about how we can support your global remote workforce. Okay. So as I mentioned, these are a couple of the topics that I've kind of overviewed. What is our service? What is our function? What is the engagement model? Why use us? What does that mean for you in terms of benefits? And then who do we work with? A little snapshot of just some of our clients, snapshot of the countries we cover, and then how to reach us. So going forward, how do we make employing staff simple in other countries? So we provide, as you said, this employer of record service. And essentially what that means is we step in as that intermediary. We act as that local employer on your behalf, and we would employ your staff for you. So we become that employer of record. We would invoice you for your staff's salary, their social security costs, and you would pay us, and then we would payroll them locally. So essentially they would sign an employment contract with our local entity. We're active in about 90 countries. We can cover 110 globally, okay? And that means that you can obviously quickly and securely hire those staff members without having to have that very, very burdensome cost of setting up that entity, okay? So how do we function? Where do we fit in? And what does that mean to you? So we actually, as you mentioned, we function as your local HR. Okay, we are responsible for the calculation, the deduction, the payment, the filing, reporting of all the income tax and the social security. Okay. Essentially, we have the legal responsibility for the compliance and payrolling of your staff with in-country experts. And a dedicated payroll and account manager means that you can quickly enter the market and support your staff with all the right and compliant information. Okay. We also have the option to provide work permits and immigration in certain countries. So if you have someone moving over into another country, they want to go to the UAE, setting up into a project for the next year, we're able to facilitate that process and still employ and sponsor them. Okay. So how does this engagement model look? So we have the end client being yourself, you have us in the middle as that local employer, and then you have the employee. Now, I always say that, we're an extension of your process. So we're acting on your behalf to ensure that they're operating compliantly and that they're receiving their statutory benefits. But you still remain that ultimate employer. And what that really means for you is that we have no engagement in terms of managing your staff. That still all sits with yourself. We just ensure they're compliant and manage the tax. Okay. So very, very simple and straightforward, I hope. So why choose Shield? And I think this is, really testament to the four best points of why use us. So it's one point of contact for compliance. If you can imagine, if you want to expand into, let's say 5 different countries, you want to go to Japan, Australia, you wanted to go to South Africa, and then you wanted to go to Germany. Now, instead of you going and trying to source some sort of provider or setting up an entity in each of these countries, you would just come to us. We would be your sole contact. And you'd have that dedicated payroll and account manager who would support your staff. So they'd always have someone to go to. That's where we have that wealth of knowledge and support, okay, of understanding the local labor laws. We've been doing this for a number of years now. And, we ourselves are actually a global entity, it's a global business where, our staff are all working remotely too. Okay. Another really great benefit is we only have a fixed cost. It's a fixed all-inclusive cost to provide the employer of record service. We don't charge a percentage. So for whatever reason, you wanted to increase the salary for your staff member, give them a bonus, we're not going to charge anymore. And I think that almost skips onto the last point there before I get to faster deployment, which is the no surprises. We like to be as transparent as possible, indicate, all the shortfalls, things you need to be made aware of. I mean, if you take any European country, if you look at France, it's a very, very complicated labor law. And what we try and do is provide as much information as possible, show you all the relevant costs. For example, in France, if you're working remotely, there's an additional cost that you have to pay because they're not working in an office, and that gets paid every month. So it's these elements that actually make us, the right company to go with, because we have that knowledge and support already set up for you. And of course, faster deployment. And I think that's quite a key, setting up an entity can take some time and can be costly, whereas we can set up and, stop paying your individual, get them set up within, less than 2 weeks, right? So it means you can enter the market a lot quicker. Then moving on quite quickly. So it says, well, what will you do with the extra bandwidth? So essentially, and this has actually been quite a lot of feedback from our clients, is that, we've taken that administration burden and the concern around compliance away from our clients, which means they can focus on their business needs and supporting the employees so that their business can thrive. Okay. What we've done here is try to give you an example of incorporating an entity versus using a service like us, using Shield. Okay. And the 3 key important factors when you look at that is the speed, is the compliance, and ultimately is the cost. So when you look at incorporating an entity, as I mentioned earlier on, it is time consuming. You have to go through the registration process, which, what licenses do you need, opening up bank accounts. So the speed just isn't as quick, all right? And obviously that would then lead into compliance. You're probably going to have to hire a local labor lawyer, get the appropriate contracts. Have you set up, a private healthcare? Some countries require that you do so, depending on where you're located. And of course, that ultimately then adds up to the total cost of how much it'll cost you to be able to do that. Now, using Shield, what we're able to do is quicker entry into the market. We have been able to set up staff within 48 hours, given urgency. If it's an expat, likely we'll be able to do that within 4 to 6 months. We've got an immigration team and the local experts to help us do that. Compliance being really important. We provide you with legal insulation and protect you from any non-compliance issues. And then ultimately, as I mentioned before, the transparency of the cost, it's fixed. There's no surprises there. This is what you're going to be charged, and we're not going to charge you any more than that. Okay. So what kind of companies actually use our service? We've got a vast range of companies, and these are just some of them. The likes of sort of textiles or Shutterstock, Sprinkler, Molson Coors. It really, really does vary, from your smaller businesses and tech startups to, your big organizations, military defense companies. You've got Lockheed Martin over there. Even, a company, which is one of my favorite clients, they actually create slides for theme parks. Essentially it's where our clients need us, and where they want to enter into the market too is where, our services will be needed. Okay. So what countries can we cover? So these are the countries where we're active in. As I did mention, we are able to support in 110 countries globally. These are just a few. Obviously happy to share more of our capabilities if you need me. So please do reach out. Here is just some of the contact details. And if you want, you can obviously contact me directly. And that's just a little bit about us, Alexandra. So should I quickly stop sharing?
We're good.
That's okay, good, fantastic.
So you've covered all of the questions that I actually had in my mind. How are you handling, let's say, the nomad type of remote workers that move from country to country? How does that work?
So I think it really does depend. So are they contractors? Are they working on short-term assignments? Or are they longer-term employees? So if you're a nomad, you're probably generally following where business is. So you might not be on these long-term assignments or going for a permanent employment position. And so that's slightly different, maybe to our service. I mean, we can support globally, and where the need is, we can support you. But if you're an individual just contracting, then that's probably not aligned to us being able to employ you and provide you the statutory benefits and the security of having an employment contract and all the benefits that go with that.
What about cases of dispute between parties? How are they handled? And you being the intermediary, I'm not sure where the legal entity and legal responsibility lies.
So do you know what this has come up quite a bit. So obviously in the eyes of the law locally, we are, for all intents and purposes, we are definitely the employer. Okay. Now, we've been doing this for a number of years, so we're very well versed and educated and have the knowledge on how to, for example, terminate an employee correctly and compliantly to avoid any disputes, which I think is first and foremost the one problem. And if there are any breach of contract, we do have a legal team to support us. Ultimately, the liability will lie depending on the circumstance. Now, if we fall foul of not providing, the correct calculation, which would never happen because I don't think we'd be in business. But, then that liability would ultimately, yes, that would fall on us. If the end client does not pay us and they're in breach of contract, or they go and they decide to terminate that employee without speaking to us, well, then now we've got a slight issue. Okay? That liability is then definitely going to be falling on the end client. But the idea here is that we're a partnership. So yes, we are in country, we've got the legal team, we are the employer, the local authorities will come through to us. They are ultimately your employee, you remain the ultimate employer, so liability should be passed up that chain. But we are here to support you with our legal team. So if there are disputes, we work as a partnership with you. First and foremost, a lot of our clients are actually from the US, and actually a lot of tech companies, surprisingly. Job roles predominantly land up being developers or sales. They usually want to enter into, market, enter into Europe or enter into Asia. Strangely enough, if I had to give you some stats on our sort of our top countries, so Canada really is up there. India's is up there. We've got a large base there. We've got a large base in Germany as well, Spain. So I think it's very much dependent on where the client wants to enter into. But as I said, the industries do vary because, we deal with from pharmaceuticals to, beverage companies to the defense contractors. So it is very much where the need is, but client base mainly from the US. And I say, Europe and Asia is kind of where they'll enter into. But yes, Germany is quite a big one. India is also quite a big one for us as well.
Thank you very much for being with us and sharing all this information. Thank you everybody for watching. Distributed teams and remote work have opened new borders and new possibilities. At the same time, they come with a degree of complexity and new problems to be solved. In all this, it is important to have the right global partners to help us navigate through new markets and new challenges. Shield Geo can help you do just that. Check them out on the RemoteCon website and join the conference for more remote work tools. Thank you.